Alrighty, everybody. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back here to another stream, my friends. Happy September. It's been a few days since we did a live stream here. We were just kind of watching the weather, and now we actually got some stuff that's starting to pop off here. In the tropics, we got a lot of activity ahead of us. But what's up, everybody? Good to see y'all. We have Dirge. We have JP2, Ponderosa. Good to see you, my friend. Good evening to you as well, JP. But anyways, folks, well, good evening. Hope everyone is doing well. So we do have a couple tropical systems we're watching. Actually, we have a Category 4 out here in the Pacific. The system is tracking towards Hawaii. We'll continue monitoring this here. I think the conditions out by Hawaii are going to be really unfavorable for tropical development. So the system, as you can kind of see on the forecast track, is expected to weaken quite significantly by the time we even approach anywhere near Hawaii. So definitely we'll keep an eye out there for this one. I don't really see any super big concerns with this one as of now, but we'll get into models here in a minute. Anyways, but we do have ourselves another hurricane. This is actually expected to make landfall over Baja California, the peninsula here, in which, this could actually bring a bit of flooding concerns for bits of the southwestern United States, in which we're going to need to look out there for. As you can see right now, we actually are currently at Category 1. This is Lorena, currently sustained at 81 miles an hour here. If you look at the top left, there is Kiko. If we look over at Lorena, pressure's down to 985 millibars, winds at 80, and moving northwest at 12 miles an hour currently. But like I said, we do have another hurricane. This is Hurricane Kiko, sustained winds of 130, makes it a Category 4, pressure down to 955, and moving west at 9 miles per hour. So we definitely do have a pretty strong storm out there. Let's actually take a peek at that real quickly. Let's see what we got going on. Let's hop over to Goes West. We'll go ahead and bring up the North Pacific Ocean here that we can look at it. But look at this thing. This thing is quite a donut, I tell you. You can see the eye there. Pretty well defined. It's wobbling a little bit here in the latest. It's not super steady right now. Once again, Category 4 sustained at right around 130 miles an hour. Higher gusts, of course, in which we are having that pressure down to a whopping 955 millibars. But this system really is just kind of in the middle of the waters out here, not really posing any big concern. Like I mentioned, the system is expected to gradually work its way here to the west. Kind of tracking towards Hawaii, but the conditions appear pretty unfavorable for any additional development or sustainability once we get out here by Hawaii. So, we'll definitely keep an eye out there for it. Now, all of our eyes are on the tropics and the Atlantic here. This is another system that we're actually watching pretty closely. This is, really why I wanted to go live here for you guys today. So we have a new disturbance here. This has actually been growing in probability here for the last little bit here. We have an overall 80% chance probability of a new tropical depression or storm developing here throughout the next week. And throughout the next 48 hours or the next 2 days, we even have a 40% chance as well. So, it still is unlikely we'll get anything in the next 2 days. However, throughout the next week or so, as you can see, we do have an overall 80% chance probability here for development out of this system here. So we'll definitely keep a close eye out there for this. We'll look at the models here. Actually, we'll go ahead and hop over to some of those now. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're looking over at the GFS. This is the American GFS model. So this is the latest run that we got. This is the 18 UTC run. So right now it's nothing more than just a bunch of disorganized storms and showers. Just a little low. Not a lot of development really expected over the next few days here, but once we approach our way here kind of for pretty much the 8th and the 9th here, which is still quite a few days away. This is a good 5 days or so. That's when we're going to really start to see maybe some development out of the system. You guys know me, I don't like to look any further than 180 hours out or so because anything further beyond that point is pretty unreliable. But looking at the GFS here, gradual development is expected. System is expected to continue moving west. We have a pretty strong Bermuda high in place across the central North Atlantic here, which is going to kind of steer the storm and keep it far to the south, at least initially. It's a little hard to tell what's going to do in the far future, given how far, it is down in time. But we work our way down in time. This is as far as we're going to go. The model here does continue to show the system moving to the west here. Anything beyond this point is literally la-la land, in which we cannot really trust or really, look into right now, because it's just a little bit too far out. Let's see here. What's up, Manga? To see you. What's up, Roadster? Saying hi, Drew Mods in chat. What's up? Good to see you, my friend. So there's the GFS, this 18 UTC run. The previous run before that here, this is the 12 Zulu from earlier today. Not really much of a difference. The last two GFS models have been pretty consistent on the track, at least for the first 200 hours or so. But like I mentioned, anything beyond that point, you can't really trust too much here. So we're not going to go anything further than that overall. But so, that's GFS here. Now, hopping over to Euro, here's the ECMWF here. So like we mentioned, not a lot of development over the next few days. It's going to be pretty slow. This is the 18 UTC run here from the Euro ECMWF model. And the Euro, suggests maybe some, very slow development here, but it actually has it going a little bit further south with a stronger Bermuda high, as opposed to what the American GFS actually suggested here. So with that being said, the Euro wants it to go further south, possibly going near the Antilles, while GFS has it further up north. So there's already a bit of differential, in the models here. So, we really can't, take anything super serious right now. But what we do need to know is that models are suggesting a system developing and moving westward. We'll have to definitely keep an eye out there for that. So that's the 18 UTC Euro. Now, the long-range European model, the ECMWF, once again, keeps this thing pretty low as opposed to what the GFS has. Euro actually has the system going, right over the Antilles here, right around September 11th or so. In which, that's a little far down still. I mean, there's a lot that can change between now and then, so we'll have to just, keep an eye out there for it. But Euro, we can't look anything really too much further, beyond that point here. Now, in terms of the CMC model here, here's another model run here. This one kind of agrees with GFS, keeping it on a relatively similar track. Definitely not as strong as kind of what the GFS was suggesting here. This model is, I believe, kind of underplaying this a little bit here. Once again, we do got that strong Bermuda high across the central North Atlantic here, which is going to kind of keep it down, kind of steer it further west here. High pressure systems, they rotate, clockwise in the northern hemisphere. Lows go counterclockwise, so this is just a big rotating disk here, which is keeping the system, pushing further west here. So that is what we got in place, and that's likely going to keep it pretty far to the south here, at least initially, like I mentioned here. Later on down in time, it's a little bit different, a little bit, too far to tell, essentially. But so that's CMC. Now, Icon, this is the 18 UTC Icon model. Now, this one actually has a relatively similar thing to what the GFS suggests. Shows some development really starting to kick off right around September 7th or so. Continue moving westward here, and it maybe even another low here, as you can kind of see, another little wave, according to Icon, having it going right over the Cabo Verde, right here, right around the 7th and 8th as well. That's where the model ends. So if anything, we might see another system according to this model here, but we'll have to see. It's really the only model that I've really seen that really supports this here. The previous run, the 12 UTC Icon here, really does show kind of a similar thing to the GFS, actually pulling a little bit further north than what GFS suggested. So, just basically off of what we've already gone over, as you guys can tell, there's a lot of disagreement here. Some models are showing system, really going north, some of them going really far to the south here. We'll definitely watch it. We'll definitely keep an eye out there for it. I do want to show you guys the this ECENS ensembles, though. We actually have this on our thumbnail, if you guys seen here a little bit ago. So this is actually our ECENS ensemble models here. Ignore that bar in the top left there. But if we go ahead and go down to, let's go within reasonable standpoint. Let's go to 180 hours out, like I mentioned here. So as you can see, I mean, we have a pretty good grouping here from the ECENS here. Let me go ahead and bring up my pen, too, so I can draw on the screen. we have a pretty good grouping here between the ensembles. You can kind of see, and it really represents kind of where our disturbance is. So look at that. Look where that's positioned here, and look back over at the Hurricane Center's area. It's pretty darn similar here, as you can tell. Once again, if you guys are just tuning in here, Hurricane Center actually has this thing at an overall 80% chance probability of development here, meaning it could turn into a tropical storm or a tropical depression within the next 7 days. So it is a good possibility, giving that overall high risk. And even throughout the next 48 hours or the next 2 days, we have a medium risk and overall 40% chance of development here being possible, throughout the next 48 hours or so, in which, we do actually have a decent chance. It's unlikely to really form in the next 2 days. Once again, the models kind of suggested a lot of the activity starting to pick up maybe right around the 7th or so. So, we're likely not going to see anything before then. But, throughout the next 7 days, though, that probability is going to be quite high, and most likely we will get a depression or a tropical storm out of the system here within the next week here. So definitely we'll keep an eye out there for that. But yeah, hopping back over here to the the ECENS ensembles, like we mentioned here. This is one model with a bunch of members. And you can see that a lot of those members, keep it within this boundary here, So majority of the members do agree on a continuous westerly movement over the next several days. The system will work its way over here to the west. Now, there is a few members, I should say, to keep this thing pretty low. Could get near some of the Virgin Islands, maybe out there by the Antilles. It's too early to tell. To be honest here, it's a little bit too early to tell. And then, of course, we do have ourselves, some of those members showing a little bit more of a further north track here. So, the middle ground, the line of best fit here kind of takes us right in the middle here. It could work its way out there by some of those Caribbean islands here for later on down in time, which we'll definitely monitor here. We'll definitely keep an eye out there for that overall. Here's the GEFS ensembles here. So this one actually has it a little bit further to the north here. As you can actually see, there's actually a few more of those members you can tell. Here's the Cabo Verde right here. Here's actually a few more members that were suggesting maybe a second disturbance here, which we'll keep an eye out there for. That's also what I believe the Icon model, I think it was, that suggested that. As well, this is the GEFS ensembles here, so there's that second area. But comparing to the ECENS here overall, you can actually see how we do have ourselves a little bit more of a furtherly north movement, likely representing either a weaker Bermuda high or a further displaced Bermuda high, as kind of opposed to what the ECENS was showing. So you can actually see there is a little bit of a difference here within those models. So once again, this is GEFS here. I'll go ahead and show you guys the ECENS here as well. You can see that there is a bit more of a southerly push here with the ECENS ensembles here. So this one's a little bit further to the south here overall. So, there is a lot of disagreement here. There still is a lot of things that we don't really know about this system here. There is a lot of unknowns, but we do need everybody to be watching the tropics here because, regardless of what it, where it's going to go, essentially, we are likely going to be dealing with some tropical activity here over the next week here, which we'll definitely need to look out there for. My merch link isn't working. Yeah, I haven't revamped my merch in a while. I need to do that. I know it's messed up though. I need to get on that. What's up, Christy? Good to see you. Seeing 29 people, only 14 likes. Let's see here. Hit that like button and show some love. Thank you, Christy. I really, really appreciate it, my friend. Let's see. What's up, Roadster? Good to see you, my friend. What's up, SPC? Let's see here. What are the chances of Florida start? It's too early to tell. Way too far out. Storms typically take about 7 to 10 days to reach in the U.S. So say there was a U.S. impact, it would take about 7 to 10 days from where it's at now to reach the United States. It's way too far out to tell. Way too far out to tell here. Christy coming in with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Christy. Really appreciate it. Saying as long as the storm doesn't stop from cruises. That is true. There very well could be some impacts with the cruises, but it's, still obviously too early to tell overall, especially if it works its way closer to those, islands out here by the Caribbean, then maybe we could be dealing with, some of those impacts. But, it is a little bit too early to tell, essentially. But anyways, Christy, thank you for the 10. I appreciate it. Roadster says the Atlantic hurricane season is ramping up. It sure is. Also, the Eastern Pacific has been ramping up a little bit too. Like I said, we actually have 2 hurricanes going on right now in the Eastern Pacific. I was actually playing Flight Simulator yesterday and actually flew into this storm here. This one is Kiko. It is a pretty big storm here. It is a Category 4 here. Once again, sustained winds of 130, gusting higher. Category 4. Central low is down to 955 millibars here. So system is quite a beast here. You can see its eye. Overall, it's pretty wobbly. I believe might be a little bit of an eye wall replacement going on there. Let me actually hop our way over here to. We might have a meso floater on it. We'll have to see. We do not have one there. Here we go. So meso floater 1. There you go. We can really kind of get a good resolution view of it. Yep. So there you go. So we do have some pretty deep convection, especially on its south and southeastern side here overall. But like I mentioned, this system is quite strong, and we are expecting more strengthening to occur here. The system is expected to, get pretty high up there here. It looks like, according to the Hurricane Center, maximum strength should be right around 145 miles an hour, which that would be, look at that, gusting up to 175 miles an hour. That's pretty rough. Thankfully, this is, we'll have to see and, not going to really pose much of a problem. Let's actually hop over here to the, to the western view here. Let's actually take a look at the Eastern Pacific overall. Or we'll pull up the Central Pacific, because I really do want to see kind of what that system is expected to do here in the future. So, it is expected to work its way out there by Hawaii, as you can tell. I mean, maybe it could still be a depression, maybe a tropical storm. By the time it reaches near Hawaii, it looks like that'll be kind of right around September 9th or so. It's a little far out still. But the good news is that we are expecting this thing to weaken a lot by the time it gets even close to Hawaii. One of the big reasons is because of those sea surface temperatures out there by Hawaii. I'm pretty sure are pretty cold. Let me actually bring that up here real quickly. I'm going to show you guys. But yeah, I really do think that those sea surface temperatures are really going to kind of limit it, holding in all that heat here. So let's do this. Let's go to the, let's see. Eastern Pacific. Actually, let's do Central Pacific here. Go ahead and pull this up. Well, you know what? Believe it or not, actually, those sea surface temperatures are a little bit warmer than I thought they were. Out there by Hawaii, we are right around 26 Celsius. I mean, so theoretically, the waters are actually warm enough. For some reason, I thought it was a lot cooler, but actually the waters have warmed up quite a bit out here. But looking back at the models and stuff like that, there's going to be other factors likely limiting its development here. Actually, one of them being dry air, as you can tell. Where it's at right now, we have a plentiful amount of moisture. A lot of dry air ahead of the storm here, but still kind of in its own little cocoon here of moisture. And we continue working our way to the northwest here. You can see as we kind of get near Hawaii, the system really starts to pull in a lot of dry air here, in which that'll really weaken the system here quite a bit here. Let's see. Anna, tropical storm team for 12 months, my friend. Thank you. Saying it's been a great year. Gonna stick around. Thank you, Anna. I really appreciate that, my friend. That is greatly appreciated. The Walmart of the seas. What? Oh my goodness. That's pretty funny though. Let's see. Roadster says Hawaii needs to say very weather wear on Kiko. Yeah, we do, but like I mentioned, it's not going to be anything like it is now by the time it gets near Hawaii. I mean, yes, it is tracking towards Hawaii. And that track is very possible. But like I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of limiting factors here. Once we kind of approach these areas out here, because once again, a lot of dry air is going to be kind of feeding into the storm here as it approaches Hawaii. And look at the wind shear here. Let's see what we got going on here. The wind shear, it actually does look like, it's also going to be running into a lot of strong wind shear kind of once it approaches Hawaii too. This is for September 7th. You can actually see, right here, there's that system. This is Kiko. And there is Hawaii. You can actually see that strong jet that's actually going over. So that'll actually kind of rip apart the storm as it approaches Hawaii here. So, it's kind of two things really killing that storm here. Mixture of wind shear, kind of, shredding apart the storm essentially. as well as dry air, really stunting, kind of, preventing a lot of convection from happening here. So that's definitely good news, that the system is, not really going to be in super, super conducive waters here. But like I said, the waters are actually, believe it or not, warm enough, right at bare minimum. But like I mentioned, too much wind shear, too much dry air for the system to really be doing anything. But, GFS here, it does have the system, possibly remaining maybe a tropical storm, if not a depression, by the time we, kind of get to the point here of Hawaii, the post-tropical, likely at this point in time. Now, whenever it comes to the Euro, here's the ECMWF. Track, they're actually pretty close here. So Euro, has this thing working its way, once again to the northwest here, has it coming up towards the Big Island here for September 9th. But, at this point in time, maybe a tropical storm here. We'll have to see what happens with it. Looking at the CMC model here, we work our way down in time. You can actually see CMC has the thing completely vanishing. But I'll also mention here that CMC has the storm now, not even in the 980s. Mostly the pressure down in the 990s, which we all know right now the storm is currently at 955, I believe, which is way, way off. So that model's already a little bit off. Let's see here. What's up, Chris? Good to see ya. Saying, how's it going, Andrew? I can imagine Kiko producing some insane waves over Hawaii's famous beaches with, I have no idea how you pronounce that beach, but, that's actually a good question, or a good thing that you said. Let's actually take a look at those waves out there. Let's see, lower dynamics, significant wave height here. So, It is certainly going to be bringing some waves, especially for some of the big islands out there, in Hawaii, as you can kind of see. The system is relatively small and compact here, as you can tell. But yeah, there'll definitely be some pretty big waves here, with this system as it does approach Hawaii. According to the GFS model, we could see possibly 10, maybe upwards of 20-foot waves. It's a little early to tell for sure, but definitely could be seeing some pretty big waves, especially for the Big Island out there. We could be seeing, a bit of rough conditions out there, some big waves, some rip currents, all kinds of fun stuff there overall. Let's see here. Let's see. Hawaii is a beautiful place to visit. Different islands, different experiences. Yeah, it's definitely beautiful. I'd love to go to Hawaii one day. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. It literally is just stuck out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But anyways, the good news, like I mentioned, y'all, is that, minus the waves and stuff like that, I mean, the effect should be fairly low, once again, due to the system rapidly weakening by the time it approaches Hawaii. But, we'll definitely keep an eye out there for that. Now, in the EPAC, like I said, we actually have another system we're watching here. This is expected to, make landfall over the Baja California Peninsula here. Now, according to the Hurricane Center, the system's actually expected to be a tropical storm at landfall. So, it's not going to be anything super, super significant. However, there is going to be quite a bit of flooding here with the system. I mean, even impacting the United States here. So we are expecting landfall to occur right around September 5th, it looks like, possibly right around September 5th, kind of in the later morning, early afternoon maybe, is kind of when we're expecting, the system to, make that landfall overall. And this is going to be working its way inland quite a bit. Now, I believe the Climate Prediction Center, or WPC, I should say, the Weather Prediction Center, actually does have some risks already in place here. So there's day one already showing some excessive rainfall for the southwest U.S. here with the level 2 down here in southern Arizona. For day 2 here, this is actually for tomorrow. You can see that risk actually gets a lot bigger, including a lot of central southern Arizona, a little bit of extreme southeastern, California, some of that working its way up towards Nevada, as well as, Utah and areas up by like Colorado and stuff. Then day 3, you can see that also persists, working its way all the way up into Oregon here. And then, of course, still that level 2 threat down by, southern Arizona, southwestern New Mexico, Day 4, level 1 threat here for the most part, and then of course day 5 that kind of works its way over here to the southern plains out by like Texas here. So, there is going to be some flooding concerns here. Let me actually bring up the overall expected precipitation throughout the next 5 days here. So this is the accumulated 5-day precipitation here, according to the the Weather Prediction Center here. And some of the areas out here by like southern Arizona, out there kind of by like Sierra Vista, we could pick up a few inches. Possibly maybe 2 to 3 inches. Locally higher amounts being quite possible. Some of that rain will be working its way into New Mexico as well. We could pick up maybe a couple of inches. I mean, even a little bit of rain out in some of these regions can do a big, could do a really, really big toll on some of those regions there. Also, quite a bit of rain expected for Florida. This is not associated with any tropical cyclone, but we do have quite a bit of rain expected for some of the Everglades out here down by southern Florida, including areas like Miami, Fort Lauderdale. A lot of the southern peninsula here, we have quite a bit of rain actually. Possibly a good 3 to maybe 5 inches or greater in some areas out there. Once again, especially out there by the Everglades. So they're going to be getting quite a bit of rainfall. Central Florida, out kind of where I'm at here. Not really a whole lot, maybe an inch or so, could be possible. But anyways, that is that. So yeah, just a lot of precipitation out of both this hurricane that we have here. This is Lorena, as well as this non-tropical system that we have going over Florida here, just driving a bunch of rain. We will be seeing quite a bit of precipitation out of that here. Let's see here. Chrissy says, Andrew, do you ever do videos on all these crazy earthquakes? Not really, because earthquakes you can't really predict very well, given they happen out of nowhere, essentially. They're observed at the time that they happen. There's really not a lot of things to really cover, in my opinion, for those. So, we really don't do that too much. You just reminded me, though, I really do need to do my... my winter forecast here soon. So I'll make sure to get that out probably sometime this week here. I'm a one disaster at a time kind of guy. Yeah, I hear you. Covering a lot of things is quite a bit. I mean, because like I said, we do got 2 tropical cyclones, both of which could pose some concern for some areas. Once again, Hawaii with Kiko here. Once again, Kiko's a Category 4 right now, but thankfully is expected to be a lot weaker by the time it approaches Hawaii. And then, of course, we have Lorena here, we were just talking about here, expected to make landfall over the Baja California Peninsula here for Mexico. So, definitely going to be some forms of impacts and, once again, causing a little bit of, flooding concerns in the southwestern U.S. And then we need to keep our eyes also on the Atlantic, too, with this new disturbance. This is really what I wanted to talk about tonight with you guys. With this system here, this could be something we really need to monitor here because, down in time, it looks like the conditions are going to be fairly favorable for development here. So taking a look here overall at the GFS once again here with this system, once again, we can't go too far down in time because of, how inconsistent, how inaccurate models are, at this hour. So, within the first, 200 hours maximum, you can see just gradual westerly movement, some gradual development is expected to occur here with this system here. Now, in terms of moisture, it doesn't really look like, according to GFS, that moisture is really going to be much of an issue here, as you can tell. It's really kind of pulling up a lot of moisture here from, the area out by the equator. We have quite a bit of moisture down here. It's going to grab a lot of that moisture. Kind of pull it up here, and the environment around the storm, could be pretty dry in some areas, but generally speaking, where the storm is, like I mentioned, it's going to kind of be in it, like I was saying earlier, its own little cocoon of moisture, which moisture shouldn't really be much of an issue, at least according to GFS here. And then, of course, in terms of the wind shear, once again, not really much of a sheared environment here either. We do have a little bit of a jet to the north of the system. We of course have our strong jet stream over here, but according to the GFS, at least in the at least within reasonable time frame, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a whole lot of limitations here, with this system. And of course, as you guys probably know, the waters out here are extremely warm, which that is not going to be much of a problem at all, for the system, I should say. let's see here. Flooding not good in all these areas. No, it's definitely not. Especially like I mentioned a minute ago. Even small amounts of rain of a couple of inches can be devastating for some of these areas that hardly ever receive any rainfall. Because the ground really kind of saturates, and it gets to a point where the water can't absorb the moisture or the water because it's so dry. It actually can't absorb it, and it really can cause a big flooding concern, even with a little amount of water. Absolutely. Anyways, let's see here. What is taking the rain away from the Tampa area? Let's see. I missed my stormy weather. Well, let's take a look at the models. Let's see what's going on out there. We'll hop over here to the southeastern U.S. here. So, according to GFS, like I mentioned, we are going to be seeing quite a bit of rainfall for the south. Let's actually use a little bit more of a higher resolution model. Let's pull up the HRRR, the good old trusty HRRR. We'll do the 0 UTC run here. So as you can see, we do have a lot of convection, a lot of storm activity here throughout the next day or so, especially down south, which can really be bringing up a lot of those totals. As you can kind of tell, we do have some storms out here by tomorrow evening as well, possibly towards like central Florida, but kind of fizzling out by the time they approach Tampa. And it just kind of looks like we're going to be in mostly dry conditions, according to what HRRR suggests here. We can't take one model too serious, but it looks like a lot of that storm activity is mostly going to be for some of the southern, western, and some of the central sides of Florida, kind of everywhere but you, from what it looks like here. But HRRR down in time does show maybe some storms possibly for the 5th. We'll have to see. Looking at that high resolution at that distance, it's a little iffy, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. Let's see, Roby says my winter forecast is going to be cold. It's going to be a pretty cold year this year. Absolutely. Let's see here. Why is it shifting to the northeast from Florida? What? All this rain here? Well, we do have actually, like I mentioned here, actually, we'll go ahead and zoom out a little bit. So right now we do have a bit of a high pressure system up here, in which a lot of the rainfall is going to be working its way. Mostly eastward. You can see a lot of that just mostly dodging Florida for the most part here. Once again, we do have a pretty strong Bermuda high out there as well. Let me actually zoom out. We need to hop back to GFS real quickly. Let's go back here to the North Atlantic view. So once again, we do have that really strong Bermuda high here, but a lot of that just kind of shoots its way under Florida here overall. Looking at the wind shear and stuff like that, you can actually see we do have a pretty decent jet right now, actually over Florida, especially in some of those upper levels there. So a lot of that, like I mentioned, will just kind of be away for a lot of central Florida, mostly for the southern side. GBF, yeah. Don't look too happy about all that, do you? Let's see. It seems like the weather in Florida this year hasn't been so active. Yeah, not really. It's been kind of a little bit more drier in some areas. Definitely not as intense as like last year. Last year we had quite an active tropical season in Florida, as well as a lot of thunderstorm activity as well. So, oh, you're talking about the storm coming towards us. Oh, the one out in the water. It's too early to tell, exactly what it's going to do, given that frame of time. What could cause it to steer to the northeast here could be, squeezing between two areas of high pressure. But that's a little bit out on a limb right now, considering it's how far this is. This is 200 plus hours out at this point. So even that far, it can be a little iffy sometimes, and the big changes in the track could occur. So it's just too early. Nothing's final, of course. It won't be for several days at this point. Nothing's going to be final for several days. But looking at the wind shear and stuff like that, according to GFS, there could be a jet, in place maybe over Florida, which could hopefully help steer it away. Once again, don't want to go too far into models because they get pretty inaccurate far you go out. Of course, you got your hype casters that will look as far as they can go. This isn't going to happen, y'all. This is 360 hours out. Of course, if you see this on anywhere, no, it's not true. Once again, you need to look at the forecast hour. This is 360 hours out, which is way too far. This is like 2.5 weeks almost. way too far out to look. Once again, I wouldn't look anything really further than 180 to 200 hours out because of how, because of how much things really start to spread out at that point in time. So, anyways, but yeah, so that's GFS. We can't really look any further than here. This is within the reasonable range that I'll want to look at. So there's GFS here. Once again, Euro kind of suggesting, the same thing, gradual development with the system here overall. But, this model actually is a little bit different in terms of having the system a lot further south as compared to what the GFS suggests here overall. Waiting for the name to come to Florida so I can have 3 days off from work. I hear ya. Let's see. Like I mentioned, though, it's too early to tell any impacts. Let's see here. Christy says projections on the size of the storm. So the models, like Euro, actually has a pretty small storm, as you can tell. I mean, it looks pretty darn small here, at least to start here, overall. And of course, we have the GFS. GFS has it starting small, maybe growing larger, with westerly movement here. It's a little bit early to tell. Once again, there's anything in. I'm going to be really honest with you guys. Anything at this point in time, once the storm gets over here, is just a big question mark. We don't know anything beyond this point. Within this reasonable time frame, we actually have a pretty good idea of what it could do, but in this block, it's a big unknown. I mean, we have a decent idea of what could happen here, but once again, towards the Caribbean, towards the United States, too early to tell. I mean, really anything could happen, given how far away it is. So that's why we just need to monitor it. That's why we need you guys to be weather aware. And like I mentioned, we're gonna just continue to keep you guys updated on this here. We'll keep on posting updates and stuff like that. I'm gonna shoot for hopefully 2 updates per day to keep you guys weather aware and stuff like that. But so that's the GFS here. We looked at Euro a minute ago. CMC, once again, kind of agreeing with the track of the GFS, but keeping the system not really that strong. Once again, what's going to keep the system pretty far to the south, once again, is this, high, or this Bermuda high that we have out here in the central North Atlantic here. And that's going to kind of keep the storm anchored to the south here for a little bit, and then of course, some models suggest maybe another high coming off of Canada as it approaches towards the Caribbean, but once again, too far out, man, way too far out. The models are kind of all over the place at that point here. So, what's up, Hockey? Good to see you. Roby says, thanks for the update. Sorry, not talkative. I'm currently rendering down lard, seasoning my Dutch oven, eating pineapple upside down cake. Oh, that is interesting. I don't think I've ever had pineapple upside down cake. I've never even heard of that. Christy says, okay, thank you, Andrew. We will always ask every storm. Yeah, you're very, very welcome, my friend. And yeah, ask questions. That's why we're here, guys. If y'all have any questions, let me know, okay? That is why we are here. So you guys know we'll keep you all updated. So we're going to hop back over here once again to the disturbance area here once again from the Hurricane Center. So this is what we got going on here. The Hurricane Center has this thing overall at an 80% chance probability of overall tropical development here, which is pretty high overall. And then, of course, we do have the next 48 hours or the next 2 days here. Threat of 40% chance, which, is possible, but not very likely. So we're not really likely going to have anything, tropical depression, tropical storm within the next 2 days. It's possible, but it's unlikely. 40% chance. And, of course, 7 days, 80% chance. That's pretty likely at this point. So, more than likely, I do believe this thing does have hurricane potential. Just given the environment ahead of the storm here, plentiful enough moisture, not much wind shear, shouldn't be too much of an issue. And of course, once again, those waters out there are definitely pretty warm. Taking a peek here back over at the, here, let's actually hop back over to the North Atlantic here, just so I can kind of show you guys how warm those waters are. They're definitely still warm. That storm that we had not long ago, you can still see where it's a little bit cooler out here. I already forgot the name of that storm. It just shows you how bad I am at remembering things. But anyways, so you can actually see really how warm those waters are. I mean, we are primed and ready to go. Cape Verde over here. We got Bermuda right here. Now it's pretty hard to see. We got the Antilles. We got Puerto Rico. We got Dominican Republic. We got Haiti. We got Cuba. We got Jamaica. Got the Bahamas. So you can actually see, I mean, the waters out here definitely pretty warm. And the system, is expected to kind of maybe do something like this. Once again, it could definitely render quite a bit. I mean, some models have it going further south. Some models actually have it going further north. Somewhere in here, is where the system is expected to go. But regardless, though, those waters super, super warm here. Once again, 29, 30 degrees Celsius waters out there. Definitely pretty warm. So that's certainly not going to be a problem for the storm here. But, it all really just comes down to how much moisture there's going to be, and how much wind shear, if any, which models don't really show a whole lot of wind shear, at least as of now, being a huge concern for the storm. And same thing for moisture, mostly quite a bit of moisture as well. Let's see here. What's up, MP? Good to see you, my friend. Hopefully you're doing well. Let's see. I've never met someone who hasn't had it. You sir are missing out. I'll have to try it sometime. Let's see here. Good night, Christy. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you. Once again, thank you for the support, my friend. It was greatly, greatly appreciated. You are the best. Thank you, thank you. But, yeah, guys, like I mentioned, if y'all have any questions, feel free to let me know. So, like I mentioned, not only do we have activity in the Atlantic that we're watching, we actually have current activity going on in the Pacific, where we got two hurricanes going on. We got a Category 4 storm right now. This is Kiko. Central low down to 955, moving west at 9 miles an hour, down to 130 sustained here. The eye is not as symmetrical as it was previously, because it is kind of undergoing a little bit of an eye wall replacement cycle, but it is expected to get a hold of itself again. We actually are expecting strengthening to occur in the storm here. So on the forecast track here within the next, little bit, within the next, basically late or pretty much early tomorrow, essentially. Throughout tomorrow, I should just say. We'll be getting those winds up to right around 145 sustained, and possibly even some gusts up to right around 175. 175 mile an hour wind gusts is expected on that storm there. So that's quite insane. Thankfully, the system's out to sea, which is just a bit of a problem for the fish out there. And, of course, boaters, they know to navigate around the storm, so it's not really much of an issue right now. But, like I mentioned, it is tracking towards Hawaii. There is good news. We are expecting the system to rapidly weaken by the time it reaches Hawaii. I mean, you can see on the forecast track here, Category 1, I mean, we're down to Cat 1, well off the coast of Hawaii, which is good. There is a chance the storm could maybe still be a weak tropical storm as it approaches Hawaii. I mean, it does look quite possible. It could, regardless, maybe bring some rain for Hawaii here. The system is likely going to be working its way out there. But, there is a lot of strong wind shear, as well as a lack of moisture in the environment here, which will kind of help prevent the storm from, strengthening or even sustaining its current strength. So that is good. So everything should really definitely should really start to weaken quite a bit. And of course, once again, that's actually Kiko. Now we actually have another storm here. This one is Lorena. Now this one also has a bit of a concern. Right now it is a Category 1. Sustained winds here at 80 miles an hour, so it's kind of a low end Cat 1. Central low down to 985 millibars here, in which we are going to see just gradual weakening from this point on, to be honest with you. I mean, actually, we might have a little bit of strengthening, actually, in the forecast here. It does have the system picking up a little bit, but it is going to quickly lose its strength as it does get closer to the Baja California Peninsula here. But, regardless, like I mentioned here, overall, the system is expected to bring quite a bit of moisture for some of the southwestern United States here. I mean, if we take a look overall at the let's actually hop over here. We'll take a look at the, let's see, where is it at? Excessive rainfall. Here we go. So day 2 for tomorrow, you can actually see we do have ourselves, a level 2 threat for flooding out here tomorrow for, southern Arizona. Definitely need to look out there for that, which that even continues into day 3, which is the day after tomorrow, day 4 as well. Next few days, definitely we could be seeing some flooding out here. But we actually looked at this a minute ago, which we'll look at it again. So between today and the next 5 days, you can see we could see a decent amount of, activity here. We do have ourselves, possibly maybe 2, maybe 3 inches or so of rainfall overall. So that is that. And of course, we do have New Mexico here as well, maybe getting a few inches, maybe up to an inch or two. So let's see here. Carrot says your mic is so horrible. You want to buy me a new one? Yeah, I've had this thing for probably a good 10 years. It's not the best. Let's see here. What's up, Scott? Good to see you, my friend. Hopefully you're doing well. Let's see, you noticed it was kind of muffled tonight, too. Yeah? Let me look here. Could be because I don't have the guard on it. I lost the guard. It's just the top piece here. It's missing. But anyways. But yeah, so that's pretty much what we're dealing with, y'all. Like I said, a lot of tropical activity here. Something we did not look here, that we did not look at, was the convective outlooks here. So today, actually, we do have a level 2 threat up there by Wichita, Kansas. Got a level 2 threat out here. No tornado threat here. Got a 5% wind threat here. Actually, we got a 15 significant risk out there. Just a little significant risk over by Wichita, Kansas tonight. Let's actually peek at the radar real quickly. Let's see what we got going on here. I got a few cells to the south, well south of Wichita. This is actually over in Oklahoma. For northern Oklahoma, nah, I don't think these are severe. Let me check. We got a special weather statement on one of them, but yeah, nothing really big. Tomorrow, severe weather-wise, we actually, wow, you know what? We actually have a pretty good marginal risk tomorrow. I'm just now noticing. Yep, so all the way from Tennessee, cutting through the mid-Atlantic towards Virginia, up into the northeast, like Pennsylvania and New York State. Pretty big level 1 marginal risk here tomorrow. We'll see what happens on that. No tornadoes tomorrow, thankfully. 5% wind threats, no hail either. So it looks like it's just a bit of a wind concern here. So, yeah, nothing really super crazy, but it is a pretty big marginal. Day 3, day after tomorrow, yeah, we look pretty good. We just got a general thunderstorm risk here overall. Florida, of course. We got one for Florida. We got one across a lot of the west, actually. Quite a bit of the Rockies included in that thunderstorm risk here, which goes through the Central Plains, through the Midwest, Ohio Valley, up into the Northeast here overall. So, yeah, actually, we are definitely looking pretty, pretty good in terms of severe weather. Nothing big. I don't think we have anything on the extended range either. Day 4, we're good. Day 5, we're good. Day 6, we're good. Day 7, we're good. And day 8, we're good. Let's see. Normally it's really clear. Every once in a while it's muffled a bit. Maybe you're too close to it. Yeah, I actually moved it back a little bit here. It doesn't help that I don't have my little guard on it either. I don't know what I did with it. It's floating around here somewhere. Let's see. Yeah, once I get that guard, it'll be better. I think it's just the fact that that's missing. The little fluffy part that goes on top of the mic. Carrot says there were 2 significant storms today, both produced up to at least 2.75-inch hail. Wow, that's pretty good hail. I didn't see the storms earlier. I wasn't really looking. 70-mile-an-hour winds, also trying really hard to be tornadic, but they just couldn't do it. Wow. Well, I appreciate the info, my friend. Yeah, I wasn't really paying attention to the weather earlier. But yeah, it looks like a lot of that's, if it happened earlier, it looks like a lot of it's definitely died out. Oh, there you go. Yeah, a lot of that's pretty much over with from what it looks like. Yeah, the system is, it's still doing some storms, but looks like actually some of those are fizzling out a little bit. Yeah, a lot of the worst of it appears to be donezo. So that's good. Anyways, but yeah, once again tomorrow we'll keep an eye on tomorrow's risk here. But yeah, as of right now, I'll actually look at the models real quickly. I'm curious. Let's bring up the models. I'll bring them over to you guys here. Why not? Pop up our let's do our HRRR here. Let's see what we got going on. So like I mentioned, we have a pretty big marginal tomorrow. We'll do the 0 UTC. Oh yeah, so kind of a little bit of a frontal system you can kind of see. Driving a bunch of scattered storms here you can see throughout the mid-Atlantic, throughout the Northeast. So it's pretty widespread from what it looks like here. Yeah, definitely pretty widespread. Let's look at the instability. Is there a lot of fuel out there? Not really. Well, hold on a minute. Yeah, there's really not a whole lot of fuel for these storms. You can see that we're pretty low. This is our mixed layer instability, or mixed layer convective available potential energy. I can't even English. Where we do have a pretty minimal amount of instability. Pretty weak, actually. Of course, stronger down south, more deeper inversions, or more steeper rates, lapse rates and stuff like that, I should say. By the Ohio Valley later on in time, we could definitely build in some moisture or some instability here for Friday, it looks like. Anyways, doesn't appear like tomorrow is going to have a whole lot of instability here. Given our kinematics, lower level winds are about 20, in some cases upwards of 35 or so knots. Mid-level flow. And we do got a bit of a trough over the Ohio Valley, though. So, there's a little bit of wind shear that could help organize some of that. But yeah, nothing really big. But yeah, quite a decent little cold front, though. I will say that. If we look at you can actually see the cold front right here. Look at the temperature ahead of the cold front. Like 80, mid 80s, upper 80s, some spots. Behind the cold front, you can see it's actually like in the 60s. So a little bit of a cool down. It's definitely been a little bit more cooler for a lot of these folks here lately. Shoot, look at this. According to HRRR, we could get down into 40s again up here by Michigan. This is for Friday morning, early Friday morning. Yeah, he probably did. What's up, TGM? Good to see you, my friend. But anyways, folks, well, that is that. Let's see. Is it going to sow in Minnesota? So it's actually funny you say that. There was a model that I was looking at that was suggesting some snow in southern Canada. Of course, that's not Minnesota, but you can actually see GFS here having this pretty decent low. Kicking up a little bit of snow for Canada, but Minnesota doesn't really look like it. It's just a little crazy to see some blue this time of the year. Roadster coming in with a 20, dude. Holy cow, Roadster. Thank you, man. Saying thanks for the update, Drew. You're very welcome, Roadster. Thank you so much for the $20, my friend. That is really, really nice of you. Huge shout out goes to Roadster. Y'all in chat, please give Roadster a big thank you for that. That's really nice, my friend. Huge thank you, Roadster. That's really sweet of you, dude. Thank you so much for that. That is greatly appreciated. Definitely helps me out a ton. So thank you, Roadster. You are the best, my friend. Thank you. But yeah, so like I mentioned, I don't really see though any snow for Minnesota though. Up here by Canada, we do have a little bit of snow. Let's actually, I think it's still too warm. Yeah, this is mostly non-sticking stuff, I have to say. I'll tell you what though, it is a little bit chilly though. Not quite towards freezing though. Let me look at the temps here. We'll do shaded. Yeah. Look at that. Just a little pocket where we get down in the mid-30s. Nothing really big. So, yeah, while those areas could see some snow, it's just a little bit too warm. It's almost freezing at that sounding there, but I find it kind of crazy. Like, we got some snow here, and then we got a full-on hurricane over here. Just shows you how much a little bit of distance will do things. Let's see here. Hard to tell since it's far out, but I'm keeping my eye on mid-September for something. We'll have to see what happens. As you guys know, we're approaching peak hurricane season now, which is crazy, because we really haven't had a whole lot of activity this year. Let's see. We'll bring up our NAM 3K here. I want to look at that snow a little bit more. That's really interesting. So there's your NAM. Shows a little bit of snow, a lot of rain. You can actually see that the big trough, this big dip in the jet stream here. This just tanking down some moisture and some cool air. I'm surprised it doesn't have this system becoming a 800 millibar hurricane. We all know how the NAM 3K reacts with tropical cyclones. Never a good model to look at. Let's see here. Roadster says, much appreciated, Drew, for the update. Well, much appreciated for the support, my friend. You are very welcome. And Roaster, if you have any questions ever, feel free to let me know. That goes for everybody, by the way. If any of y'all have any questions about the weather, y'all let me know. We'll be here to help. Yeah, I just want to make sure you guys are staying up to date and all that stuff. See, Drew, it's chilly in Kentucky. Lows next Friday are going to be like 47. I'm going to die. I'll be frostbitten by the time I get back home. Yeah, no thank you. That's about as warm as it gets here during the winter time. No, I lied. Sometimes we get in the 30s, which we've had. But yeah, that's actually a cold day for Florida if it gets in the 40s, yet alone. Yeah, I wouldn't survive either. That one time, so I don't know if you guys remember last January, I think it was, or this previous January, where we had that big Florida snowstorm. Do you guys remember that? How it went over like the panhandle of Florida, the quote unquote continental area of Florida, I consider it. Because, I'm going to be straight up with you guys here real quickly. So, you got Florida, right? So, what some people are probably going to get mad at me for this. I consider this Florida, I consider this like an extension of Georgia and Alabama. Because Florida here, this is the main peninsula. I consider the main peninsula here being Florida. This is very heavily influenced by continental weather. What I mean by that is like, cold fronts and stuff like that, really can affect these areas. But the thing is that once you get into the peninsula, you have a lot of that warm air that comes off from the waters, on both sides actually, not just the Gulf, but also the Atlantic side here as well. So, it's like the weather is heavily influenced and is very, very different. In the peninsula side and the panhandle side. But anyways, back to what I was saying, though. Back in January when we had that one storm that rolled through northern Florida, driving all of that snowfall. We had like a foot, I believe, out by like Pensacola, I think it was. Or was that New Orleans? I knew it was somewhere down here towards the Gulf Coast. It was pretty crazy. But, even then, here in Central Florida, it was like 40-something degrees and rainy. It was cold. I couldn't ever. It's too cold. I used to be able to handle it very well, but no. I hate to say it, but even 60s is cold to me now. What's up, Sonny? Good to see you. Saying hey, Andrew, in chat. What's up, my friend? Hopefully you are doing well. It is good to see you. Let's see here. Crazy how our first and so far only Atlantic hurricane was an extremely intense Cat 5. That's kind of how it was last year. We obviously had more storms last year, but the first storm, I think, or was it Beryl? I think it was Beryl. It was Cat 5, right? Beryl, I believe, was Cat 5. Was it before it hit the Antilles or whenever the Antilles or after? I don't remember. No, anyways. But yeah, no, you're right. It is pretty crazy. But, this is likely going to be our second hurricane of the year, I believe. Definitely. I mean, just given the environment ahead of the storm, we'll kind of hop you guys back to models real quickly. Like I was mentioning here just a little bit ago, whenever it comes to the conditions ahead of the system here, looking at the moisture content, we do have all that blue. So this bluish green represents a ton of moisture in the atmosphere, throughout the atmosphere. Then you have the brown, which is indicating a lot of drier air, essentially. So, with that being said, in the projected future, of the storm here, the system's actually going to be rolling its way, through some pretty good amounts of moisture, according to GFS here, not really dealing with much dry air, at least initially. We can't go really any further than that because of how inaccurate things do tend to get. And then, of course, we do have the wind shear. Seems like we have a little bit of a jet to the north, maybe. But, I mean, nothing really, really super, super crazy. Overall here. So, like, GFS here has, system not really running into much wind shear and not much moisture, which, of course, the waters out there are very, very warm, which could allow for, rapid strengthening out of the system. Euro, we got to remember both Euro and we'll go to 12 Zulu. Both Euro and the American GFS model suggests at least tropical storm here. Let's see, looking at the overall moisture. So Euro actually shows not as much moisture available to the system, keeping it relatively smaller. As you can kind of tell, there's really not a whole lot of moisture. Whoops. And that system's pretty darn small. That thing is literally like tiny. Because of how little moisture it pulls in. The more moisture, typically, the bigger the storm could get. But yeah, so Europe, has that system being very, very small. Also tracking a lot further south, likely due to its smaller footprint, essentially, its smaller influence. But, a lot of that just depends on how much moisture it can pull in and all kinds of stuff like that. But, still seems like there's enough moisture for things to continue. Wind shear, let's see. Kind of the same thing here. A little bit of a jet to the north of the storm here. We'll have to see. You know what, though? Something I'm just now noticing. Euro also suggests another low going off the west coast of Africa, but has it rapidly dying out. I think it was the Icon that also agreed on that as well. I don't expect much out of it. It's a little far out anyways, so... Anyways, but we'll just keep our eye on this guy. Once again, the Hurricane Center has an overall 80% chance of development here. So throughout the next week here, we just have a 80% chance of formation. Nothing really, really super, super crazy. Within the next 48 hours here, 40% chance it's possible, but likely not going to do, really a whole lot here. But anyways. But later on down in time, we got that 80% chance, so it's definitely quite likely. Let's see here. Is Drew dressed in camo? It's actually my tropical shirt. It kind of looks like camo when I'm down like this, doesn't it? Let's see here. What's up, Sonia? Good to see you, my friend. Robbie says that's because you've acclimated to the warmer temperatures. You moved north or if you move north over time, the heat will be hard to handle here in Missouri. It's so both extremes. That's true. It actually used to be the same where I lived in Virginia and Kentucky as well. I used to live in both of those states. And yeah, some of those areas have harsh summers and harsh winters as well. Really hot summers sometimes well above 100 degrees. And then some winters well below, in the teens and even lower, Florida, believe it or not, a lot of you guys are probably not going to believe this, but Florida sometimes has a really hard time of getting over 100 degrees because of the moisture content. Adding a lot of moisture makes it you need a lot more energy to get hotter, essentially. So it's pretty rare to see temperatures, well over 100, essentially. So, anyways. You'll have to give me some more for Christmas. Shh. You realize you just said that in my public chat. I'm not going to just see that. Anyways. But, all right, everybody. Well, we're approaching... Well, we actually are well over an hour here. But, so it is getting a little bit later. So I think we're probably going to roll off here soon. If y'all have any questions before I roll off, let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you guys. But, once again, I just want to say thank you all. For joining us. You guys are awesome. Greatly appreciated. Once again, huge shout out goes to Roadster Jim, Anna, as well as Christy for the donations and the memberships as well. Thank you guys. You all are awesome. So thank you guys seriously for the support. That directly helps us, helps keep us on our feet, helps keep us rolling. So thank you guys seriously for the people who have directly supported us like that. Greatly appreciated. But, alrighty, everybody. Well, once again, if you guys have any questions before I roll off, go ahead and throw it down in the chat. If not, we'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll do another update here for you guys. We'll make sure that you guys are staying weather aware, staying up to date and everything like that. We'll keep you guys up to date on everything here. But anyways, let's see, not like the northern Texas dry heat. Yeah, dry heat can get a lot hotter with lower humidity. So basically, the higher the humidity, the lower the heat could get, essentially. You can get high humidity, 100 degrees, but it's not very super common in some areas. And then, of course, you can get some of those dry areas, well into 100 degrees. Like Death Valley, for example, is so dry, and that allows for some of those sometimes the temperatures to get in 130s or so, which it's crazy. It's happened. Yeah, it's pretty nuts, and because a lot of that dry air and stuff like that. Let's see here. Tropical activity on the rise. Indeed, it is. Absolutely. Yeah, both in the EPAC and the Atlantic here. Once again, we got these two hurricanes we're watching. Then we got this disturbance here. This will likely become an invest tomorrow, I'm thinking. So we'll have to see what happens. We'll keep an eye on it. It's not an invest yet. I don't believe so. Yeah, not yet. So probably tomorrow or the day after. We'll probably see an invest out of this guy. All right. All right, everybody. Well, thank you all for watching. You guys take care. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your night, my friends. Thank you all for joining us. Once again, a huge, huge thanks goes to Roadster Jim and as well as Christy as well. Thank you guys once again for your support. Greatly appreciated. And thank you, everybody, for watching and hanging out with us tonight. If you guys are new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button. It'll be greatly appreciated. And be sure to leave a like on your way out. It'll be also greatly appreciated. But all right, everybody, well, thank you all so much for joining. You guys have a wonderful rest of your night. We'll see you guys tomorrow for another update on the tropics and everything above. So hope to see you guys then. And all right, everybody, thanks for joining. See you guys in the next one. Peace out, my friends. See ya later on.